I am live. It's Gordon Causey, as it always is. Or if you prefer, Gordy Canuck. I see I already have three people waiting on live stream. I made you wait 15 minutes. I got caught on the phone. Was having a phone conversation that went a little long. To wrap it up, Candy, of course, is always here. Candy the Wonder Pup, Wonder Dog, um, and Shake, lay down, speak. There's a good bark. And there she goes. What's Danny writing? Danny missed my last live stream, and he's telling me that I made some mistakes in my French language instructions, details on voting. He's saying that it's représentatif. I probably said représentant or something like that. So, représentatif. And I said to put the X next to the circle, à côté le cercle, ou à côté, or whatever. I don't know exactly how I framed it, but vous mettez votre X dans le son, dans le cercle, in the circle, uh, not next to it. And other than that, he said, ma français, c'était d'accord, correct. My French was okay, other than that. Now, Danny is writing that the Pope prophecy claims this was the last Pope and judgment in 2027. I don't have any real thoughts. I thought I would. There are all kinds of prophecies with respect to the Pope, Nostradamus and stuff, and the Black Pope and this Pope. And I haven't delved too deeply into that, so I don't have much to say on it at all. I just found it curious. J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, had met with Pope Francis just before he died, I think within 24 hours, if not 24, not much more than that. J.D. Vance had just had an audience with His Holiness, I guess would be the term, and 24 or so hours later, or maybe even less, the Pope passed away at 88 years of age. So that gives us something else to, dominate the news feed. Over the next couple of weeks, cardinals from around the world will be descending upon Rome for their conclave. They'll be meeting, I think it's in the Sistine Chapel underneath the portrait that Michelangelo of God reaching out and uh, Adam reaching out, touching fingers. Not quite touching, I don't think. They're very close, but they don't quite meet. That's where they will be meeting, and they'll be conducting their vote. I think it's 110 or 20 cardinals will be casting votes for the next pope. They have to get a two-third majority of the votes. Two-thirds of them have to be for a specific candidate. And we get the black smoke, means the vote has been conducted and no one elected. And then when they finally do achieve that two-thirds majority needed to elect a new pope, then white smoke will come out of the chimney at the Sistine Chapel, and that will signal to the world that there is a new pontificate maximus, a new head pontiff. I use that term intentionally because I find Roman history fascinating. In the old Roman Empire, before Christianity became the state religion, they had their own paganistic, plurality of gods, Zeus and Apollo and Neptune and all the Roman gods, and they had a group of pontiffs, and the head pontiff was called the Pontificate Maximus. And to this day, the word pontificate means to hold forth in an arrogant and I know everything manner. Allow me to pontificate. Um, it just shows the link between the modern Roman Church and the ancient pagan religion of ancient Rome. Anyway, so let's see what else is being written. Eat Me is saying in my last video, it went off at 3 o'clock in the morning. And the reason for that was yesterday, Easter Sunday, we had gone down to Mississauga, and then driving back from Mississauga to Brighton, we got hit by the 401 was completely shut down in a town called Newtonville. all the traffic was being shunted off of the 401. And so it took what should be about an hour and 45-minute drive, and it took us over 4 hours. It was insane. We should have been home 1 a.m. or thereabouts. And instead, actually, in and around midnight, quarter to 11:45 midnight, and we didn't get home until sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning. So I decided to do a live at 3 a.m. on the conversations I had at that little family gathering with respect to the election and some young voters. Two of my sister-in-law's sons are at Guelph University, one studying a science-related program, not sure what end of science, and the other one is in business. And both were supportive of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, but they didn't understand the voting process. I had to explain it to them. You're going to be handed a ballot, paper ballot, and you're going to look for the candidate who has Conservative Party of Canada next to their name. And that, if you want to vote for Pierre Poilievre, you have to vote for a Conservative candidate. And they're like, so I'm not voting for Pierre Poilievre. And I said, no, you have to be in the riding of Carleton near Ottawa, in the Ottawa area. That's his riding. That's where he is running as an MP. Tried to explain to them as easily as I could the new Westminster system of parliamentary democracy. And and it's both of their first time voting, and I think they're not unique. I think there are a lot of young Canadians who are under the impression they watch the leadership debate, they see Jagmeet Singh, Pierre Poilievre, Mark Carney, they see Francois Blanchet, and they think, I got to pick between these four individuals. And I do think that's the way most Canadians base their vote. They decide who they want to be prime minister. But when you go and vote, in my riding, Northumberland Clark, none of the leaders' names is on the debate. We have a Liberal candidate, a Conservative candidate, an NDP, a Green Party candidate, a People's Party of Canada candidate, someone from the Christian Heritage Party, and one independent. There were 7 names on the ballot. I voted today. Philip Lawrence got my X. Philip Lawrence is the Conservative candidate in Northumberland Clark. And viral stigma has shown back up and is saying evening to everyone. Um, Amy is saying we're all going to wait for the white smoke. That's what we'll be waiting for to see when the world will have a new pope and who it is. And I don't know how many Catholics there are in the world. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 billion. I think there are 1 billion people who are listed who identify as being Roman Catholic. We'll see. Uh, and Danny is writing, just not another Jesuit. There are lots of conspiracy theories surrounding the Jesuit order. There are Jesuits, there are Franciscans, there are Benedictines, and there are probably some other orders, the Opus Dei, a number of different Catholic orders, Roman Catholic orders. Knights of Columbus is a Catholic order, and this Pope Francis was the first ever Jesuit Pope, the first ever elected member of the Jesuit order. Normally it's been Franciscans, Benedictines, or others. And viral stigmas writing that the 401 sucks. I hate it. I enjoy going to the GTA. I like being there. It's the travel that drives me nuts because it takes so long. And once you get to Oshawa and all the way through to the other side of Toronto, there's always the potential for traffic. And actually, the drive to Mississauga took 3+ hours because in the westbound lanes, somewhere past the airport, there was a truck and a car got into a collision right in the middle of the highway, and everyone was having to go around either side of them. And so my hour and 45-minute, 2-hour drive took over 3 hours getting there, and then over 4 hours coming back, 7 hours plus driving. I hate it. Let me switch from top chat to live chat. Did that again. I forgot. I don't think I've missed anything though. Eat Me is writing, even at the last Jubilee, he really looked sickly. It was a matter of time. I was expecting, yeah, likewise, when they were announcing that that Pope Francis had been hospitalized and everything, I thought it was going to happen quicker than it did. And then when he's meeting with JD Vance and making public appearances, I said, okay, well maybe he's on the mend, and bang, that's the end. Uh, and Eaton's writing, yeah, New World Order Pope he was. Pope Francis was widely considered to be incredibly progressive on things like gender identity and homosexuality, far more than any of his predecessors. So we'll see what happens. Sharunian has shown up. Haven't seen Sharunian for a couple lives, but Sharunian, he usually does show up. Canada has lost everything due to undocumented immigration. And Denny's saying hi to Sharunian. Well, here we are. I voted today, and I did want to try and fixate in on something. I'm already 10 minutes in. I'm trying to talk a little faster to try and cover everything off. But I went into my local polling station, community center, King Edward Community Center here in Brighton, Ontario, where they have the hockey arena and a large meeting room that's rented for things like weddings and stuff like that. Uh, they have shuffleboard and senior groups meet there. That's where I went to vote. And what I did was I was stopping in at a local bargain shop. Did that. I had to get some gas in the van because I used a lot of it coming back from Mississauga and being stuck in traffic for 2 hours, driving a kilometer every half hour. And so I got some gas, and then I figured, I'm here. The polls close at 9. I'll get my vote done. So I went in, but I didn't have the voter ID card, which is okay. I know the system. I know I don't have to have that card. So I went in, and immediately there was an Elections Canada worker there. And she said, "Oh, you don't have your card? You need to go over to that table to find out what your polling district is, what poll you're voting in." Yeah, no problem. Went over to that desk, showed them my ID, picture ID. All they need is a government issued picture ID with an address. They need an address. So something like a driver's license is Bob's your uncle. So they verify your identity, verify your address, then they look up your name on the voter list, and it said that I was in poll 608. So she said, great, you just go get in that line for poll number 608. There was no line, no one was in front of me. I went right to the lady and I plopped my ID down. She checked it and she went under the voter list. She found my name. She, with a ruler, crossed my name off the list and handed me a paper ballot, piece of paper with 7 names on it. She said, just go behind that partition. I said, yes, I know how this works. She said, go behind that partition. And I walked back there. And then she said, bring the ballot back to me because there's a tear off portion of it that is used separately, numbered. The ballot isn't numbered, but this little tear off perforated portion. And the reason they do this is to ensure that if 12,000 people vote in the election, they want to make sure they had 12,000 voters and we have 12,000 ballots. We want to make sure the numbers match up. That they're It's not like we issued 12,000 ballots, but somehow we've got 15,000 people voting. We've got 15,000 ballots filled out, but only 12,000 verifications. What happened? There was fraud. This is one of the many checks they have in place to ensure that Canada's elections are fair and that they have integrity. And I have a very high degree of confidence in the workers at Election Canada. They're human, capable of human error, but there's nothing untoward happening. So I went in behind the partition. Sitting there on the table was a pencil and a pen. It was one of those Bic pens. And I took the pencil. I took the pencil. I did not take the pen. No one's going to erase my ballot. Okay. I took the pencil. And in the circle corresponding to the name Philip Lawrence, Conservative Party of Canada, in the circle corresponding to his name, very clearly, and I went over it a couple times to make sure my intention was obvious. I marked an X And then I took the ballot, folded it, I handed it to the Elections Canada worker, probably a returning officer or deputy returning officer, gave it to her. She tore off the perforated section. She said, "Don't go away." And I said, "I know. I'm the one who has to put it in the ballot box." She didn't look at my vote because it was folded. She just has to tear off that perforated section that has numbers on it so that they can know exactly how many ballots were handed out. She handed it back to me, and I stuffed it into a physical cardboard type box with a slit on the top, popped it in. It kind of hung at the slit, and I stuck my finger and made sure it went down into the box. And that box will remain with Elections Canada workers, and it will remain unopened, and it will be, I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, but 99% sure. That's the same box that on April 28th will be brought out. And then people voting that day in my poll of poll number 608, they will put their box, their ballots in that box. And the box will not be opened until I think it's 9 p.m. I think that's when the polls close in Ontario, but I may be wrong. I can check that out very quickly. Google, um, when do polls close in Ontario? Um, and what does it say? Elections Canada. When are the polls open? Uh, so it's telling me I am in Eastern time. They are open from 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. So at 9:30 p.m. on April 28th, the the polling station will be closed. There will be a number of boxes in place: 601 to 603, 604, 605, 608, 6 might go to 620. I don't know. And then the deputy returning officers and returning officers will then open the box and they'll start tabulating. They'll have a great big sheet of paper with a tabulation sheet with all the candidates' names, and they will be putting X's and counting how many votes each candidate got. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, you got to vote in a Sharpie, you got to vote in pen. Don't vote in pencil; they'll erase it." No, they will not. I've been a scrutineer numerous times in federal elections. Federal elections are always paper ballots, and the box isn't open until 9:30 p.m. And there can be Philip Lawrence will have a scrutineer there. So will the Liberal candidate, the NDP candidate. Every candidate has the right to have a registered scrutineer in place observing the counting to make sure no one's erasing ballots. They just dump them on a table and then okay, that one's been counted. One vote for Goheen, one vote for Philip Lawrence, and someone is filling out the tabulation sheet. And scrutineers can be there from every party observing and making sure that everything is above board. And I'm here to tell you, it's the I get it because I can be as conspiratorial minded as the next person, but not everything is a conspiracy. There's a tendency when are there conspiracies in the world? Yes, there are. People do conspire. Okay. The ad scam scandal that happened with the Jean Chrétien liberals, that is a documented and proven conspiracy. The Liberal Party funneled about $1 billion to liberal friendly ad agencies, and then those ad agencies did no work. They didn't do anything for the federal government. And then what happened was senior employees with those same ad agencies then funneled a large portion of the money they had received from the government back to the Liberal Party in the form of donations. So that was a conspiracy, and it was proven they conspired. We'll give you contracts, you don't do any work, and then you have your senior executives donate money to us in the form of political contributions. And that came out during what was called the Gomery inquiry. So, yes, conspiracies do happen. People do conspire, but that doesn't mean that everything is a conspiracy. The workers at Elections Canada are part time workers. There probably some of them are working full time hours now, but only during the advance polling and during actual election night. These are volunteers. Can they have just someone? They're not volunteers. They're paid. And can someone have biases? Can there be Liberal Party members or people who are inclined to support the Liberals who become federal election workers for Election Canada? Yes. But the rules are such that interfering in our electoral process are nigh on impossible. You can try, but you're going to get caught because there are eyes everywhere. Every candidate has scrutineers in place watching everything. Let me take a drink of my coffee and then I'm going to look at the comments because I haven't been paying attention to them. Uh, got a few new names here too. So I'm going to start from here. Good evening. JCP is writing, yes, sir. My husband and I voted. Wonderful. And you can trust that your vote will be counted. And there's a 99.999999% chance that everything, as you voted, it's going to go in. There is some contention happen sometimes. What'll happen is someone maybe they have Parkinson's disease and their X is shaky and it goes outside of the circle and maybe part of the line goes into the circle for another candidate. What is most important, as I understand the legislation, it's uh, what was the person's intention when they marked the ballot? Were they voting for the Liberal candidate? Were they voting for the Conservative candidate? Were they voting for the NDP candidate? So long as their voting intention is clear and obvious, there should be no issue. And 99.99%, 99.99% of the time, that's the way it's recorded. You do get some very pain in the rear end scrutineers who that vote went outside of the circle a little tiny bit. It shouldn't count. And they'll say that when it's a vote in favor of a candidate other than the one they're supporting. I have been a scrutineer and I've always taken people like that to task. And I've said, oh, give me a break. Everyone knows who that person was voting for. And I've done that even when it isn't my candidate. Someone, I'm there for the PPC and someone has voted Liberal and it's gone just a little bit outside of the circle. And the NDP scrutineer is going, that vote shouldn't count. And I'm like, oh, give me a break. Everyone knows that person was voting for the Liberal. Save it for something genuine. Some people do destroy their ballots. Some people write on them, none of the above, or, they all suck. You'll even get profanities written on a ballot, and those are recorded as I forget the exact term, marked ballot, destroyed ballot. Doesn't count for anything, but it still gets counted as a vote as having been cast. But there's no one gets the vote. It's put into a separate category, and those ballots are saved in the event of a recount because, and I think it's if the margin of victory is less than 0.1% or something like that, it's got to be incredibly close, like 100 or so votes separating the winner and the second place. In that case, there is a threshold at which there is an automatic recount. What's viral stigma writing? A lot of people aren't realizing conservatives can win this election. 1 to 3 popular vote this time. They have the more efficient vote this go around. Can play around with 338 calculator. We'll see what happens. I have faith in the system as it exists, that whatever the results are on April 28th, that they will be an accurate representation within 99.999% of the voting intentions of Canadians. And I'm willing at this point to sit back, wait a week. That's what we have. We have a week left, April 28th, next Monday, 9:30 p.m. Um, the polls close. I've got the in Newfoundland, the polls close at 8:30 p.m. Atlantic time, 8:30 p.m. They close, and this is all local time. So that's 8:30 local in Newfoundland, 8:30 local in the Atlantic provinces. Remember that Newfoundland is half an hour ahead. And then you have Atlantic Canada. They end at 8:30 p.m. their time. Eastern time zone, which is all of Ontario, all of Quebec. The polls close at 9:30 p.m. Central time, that would be Manitoba and maybe Saskatchewan. I'm not sure. Their polls close at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time, which I know is Alberta. I'm not sure about Saskatchewan's time zone. Mountain Time, the polls close at 7:30 p.m. in Alberta, Mountain Time. And in BC, Pacific Time, the polls close at 7 p.m. I'm getting that right off of the Elections Canada website. I'll share it just very quickly. Voting hours share. So there it is. Newfoundland, Atlantic, Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 time zones in this country. So it's and the sharing. So let's see. And New Brunswick, Lalo is here saying, hi, Gordon. Hello, New Brunswick, Lalo. I say it in the French fashion. Are you an Acadien? Acadien? Viral is writing, lucky I was in line for over an hour. There was a lady who looked over 80. She was laying on the ground. She stood up for so long, ambulance had to come and pick her. Oh, she was down there for so long that ambulance had to come and pick her up. Oh, that's sad. Yeah, I was lucky. I went on Monday. From what I understand, according to all the reporting, over 2 million or somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million votes were counted on the first day of advanced polling, which I think started on Saturday. Advanced voting, the advanced polls opened Saturday. And on that day alone, they're reporting that over 2 million votes were cast. So we could be looking at over the course of Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Yeah, sorry, it was Friday. Yeah, it started Good Friday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Over those 4 days, wouldn't be surprised to see 5 million votes have already been cast. And that'll be helpful on election day because it should preclude there from being long lineups. Some people genuinely haven't made their mind up yet. They're like, I'm going to wait and see. I haven't had time to review the issues. I don't follow politics that closely. I've spoken to young kids with whom I work who are, 20 somethings, 18 or thereabouts, voting in their first election. I asked one young kid, Colin, I said, are you going to be voting? He said, yes. Have you decided yet? He said, no, I haven't looked into it yet. I need to look over and decide who I want to vote for. And it's amazing. Here we are a week away, a little more than a week when I spoke to him. I spoke to him over this past weekend, and he still hadn't looked into it. I, of course, did my bit to talk up Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party and to trash all over European, tax, Bermuda tax, tax-free haven, uber rich Mark Carney, who's not there. He's not in it for you. He's not in it for me. He just came into Canada, just made a little visit to Canada to see if he could become the prime minister. And if he does not win this election, he'll be gone. He'll be back. He'll head back to Europe, or maybe widely reported that his wife has $1 million+ condo in Central Park West, Central Park East. And he'll be down in New York, back with his old buddy Donald Trump, or he'll be across the pond in England, eating his strawberries, sipping his champagne during Wimbledon, which he loves to do. Uh, at any rate, let's keep reading. Union is of the opinion that we have far too much illegal immigration in this country. A lot of people agree with you. I think all reasonable people are against illegal immigration, against people jumping the queue, jumping the line. going in front of people who are genuinely trying to go through the proper process. And right now, the way things stand in Canada, people are coming into the country, making an asylum claim, seeking asylum in Canada. And from what I understand, it can take 4 years before the system can adjudicate it because they're overwhelmed with the numbers. And then after 4 years of being in Canada, then there's a tendency towards our immigration system, I believe, to say, well, on humanitarian grounds, we're going to grant your request for permanent residency and citizenship in Canada because you've been here 4 years, you've established ties, formed relationships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that seems to be, yeah, de rigueur, business as usual. And Pierre Poilievre is pledging to stop it. He has to deliver on that pledge, but at least he is pledging to stop it. Danny's agreeing with Sharunian. Viral Stigma is writing, they don't erase ballots. It would be 10 times easier to just spoil the ballot than erase it and put a new one in. And they're not going to. They're not going to. It's not the ballot boxes are sealed. The scrutineers are in place, observing everything. In our hyper-connected world, we would have found if this had ever been tried in a previous Canadian election, it would be all over the place. You're not going to hear anything. Things will go fine. New Brunswick, Lala retracted a message. Eat Me is writing, I just don't trust them. Have you seen the length of the ballot in Poilievre's writing? About a foot long. Yeah, there are 90 plus candidates on the ballot. It's being widely shared. A picture of the ballot. Everyone, I'm hearing a lot of people say, oh no, if you go to the advanced polls, it's electronic voting. I'm voting on voting day because it's a paper ballot. It's a paper ballot all the time. And there's a picture of the ballot for Pierre Poilievre's writing, which is Carleton, in and around Ottawa. I think it's Ottawa, but Ottawa is around 1 million people in Ottawa and the surrounding area. So there's probably, 9, 10, 11 ridings, don't know exactly how many. One of them is called Carleton. And this organization, there's a group in Canada, I believe they're associated with the Rhinoceros Party, but it doesn't matter. What they have tried to do is to make Canadian democracy non-functional. And what they've done is they've registered 90 or so candidates, independent candidates in that riding. So all those names have to be put onto the ballot. So when someone gets their ballot in the riding of Carleton, it's going to be, I don't know how long, 3, 4, 5 feet long. And then you'll have to go through, and I believe the names are alphabetically listed by candidate. You'll have to go down and find Pierre Poilievre. He's going to win that riding, but it's going to lengthen the process for people going to vote on voting day because they're going to have to, where's Pierre's name? Where is it? Oh, finally, I found it. It's going to take a little longer. With me, I think there were 6 or 7 names. There was Conservative, Liberal, NDP, Green, PPC, Christian Heritage, and Independent. 7 names were on my ballot, just 7 names. It was about that long. It was very simple. But if it's about that long for 7 names, imagine what it is. It's more than 10 times that size when you put 90 plus names on there. And what happened in 2015, Justin Trudeau, when he got elected to a majority government, he announced as part of his victory speech, he said, this is Canada's last ever election with first past the post voting. Last ever. We're never voting first past the post again. And it's like he said, we're going to balance the budget at the end of my first term. And it's like he said, I'm going to treat Indigenous Canadians with respect. And all these lies that Trudeau told us, and yet we still reelected him twice, although in the last 2 elections, 2019, 2021, the Liberals lost the popular vote. They got less than 33% of the vote. That, it was fair. It's the way our crappy system works. is that even though the Liberals only got 32% of the vote, they still got to form the government both times. This election is going to be different. There are a number of possibilities. We could be looking at a liberal majority, liberal minority, conservative minority, conservative majority. I don't know. My inclination is toward predicting either a conservative minority or a liberal minority, and I'm praying that the conservatives win. I don't think a majority is in play. We still have a week to go. A week is a lifetime in the political game. However, I can promise you, Mark Carney has been running a shadow campaign already. He keeps going and playing hide and go seek from the electorate. He keeps leaving the campaign trail to go hide away in Ottawa because the more he says, the worse things get for him and for the Liberal Party. So he's going to be hyper careful over the closing week. I don't expect much to be said at all because the more he talks, the more trouble he gets into. Uh, anyway, and New Brunswick Law says 9 p.m. for New Brunswick. New Brunswick's Atlantic time. And their Elections Canada's website is saying that it is 8:30 p.m. So I am going to go with what I see on the Elections Canada website. And I'll share that right now in the live chat. Hopefully it populates to the live chat. And it did. So I'm going to trust what Elections Canada has on their website. I don't want anyone showing up to the polling station at 8:45 because my station said, "Oh, you got until 9 p.m." and finding out the doors are closed. If Elections Canada's website says it's 8:30, I would take that to the bank and make sure that you are at least in line to vote before 8:30 p.m. And Danny's mentioning that the one ballot, 100 names on it, that's for the riding of Carleton, Pierre Poilievre's riding. Why are they targeting Poilievre's riding? He's not the one who promised to end first past the post voting. That was done by the Liberals. And they, crapped the bed on it like they crapped the bed on crime and drug abuse and the economy and everything else. So why are you targeting Pierre Poilievre's riding? That's disgusting. If you want to do that, do it in Mark Carney's riding. It's right next door in Nepean. But instead they're going at Pierre Poilievre. Not surprised. Okay? And that could dissuade some people from voting. Oh, I don't want to go through a list of 90 plus names, 100 names. Screw it. I'm not going to vote. It could be seen as an attempt at voter suppression, making it more difficult, putting barriers in the way. But I still think Pierre Poilievre is going to rock in his riding. I don't think there's any question there. He's been the MP for that riding for 20 odd years. Viral Stigma is writing at Danny. Pierre's riding has 91. And I think that is the number. I've read the reporting. I just, can't remember every minute little detail. To protest against first past the post, as I said. Funny, even though Carney is next door. Carleton riding, where Pierre Poilievre is right next door to Nepean, where Mark Carney is running. And according to Viral Stigma, there are only 5 candidates running in Mark Carney's riding. And yet they choose to target Pierre Poilievre. Insane. Eat me, New Brunswick. Brett Skinner is here from the great state of Wyoming. Checking out the Canadian election. I'm just trying to catch up. Okay, Danny's writing. Everyone's wishing everyone a happy Easter. Remember, this is the season of the Passover, when death passed over, when Jesus went to the cross. And Sunday, we just celebrated that the tomb is empty, that Jesus lives. And Jesus is the most impactful Jesus changed history. We date time based on Jesus's incarnation. Jesus, when the Word became flesh, that's how we mark time. Before Christ, in the year of our Lord, BC Anno Domini. New Brunswick Lala is writing, he'll be back to his desk at Brookfield by Wednesday morning. There are a lot of people who think that the new chairman of Brookfield is there pro tem for the time being, and that it'll become permanent if Mark Carney wins. But if Mark Carney loses, Mark will say, okay, I want my old job back. I want to be chairman of the board. You're not registering our investment funds down in Bermuda or the Cayman Islands or some other tax-free haven so that we can avoid Canadian taxation. We've got offices like the one we had in Toronto. We've got to move them down to the US, like I recommended to shareholders. And thank you, Mark Carney. I pray Canadians, enough Canadians. I know there's going to be some voting Liberal, and I don't hate them. Uh, I just hope that they don't carry the day next week. What is Eat Me writing? Carney was caught scheming to strike a 25-year contract with the US about data centers. The news dropped today. Haven't caught up on that one yet. I was out running around, going doing some shopping, getting the gas, doing the voting. So I haven't been all over my news feed, but scheming to strike a 25-year contract with the United States. Yeah. Carney's sucking and blowing at the same time. He's there years ago. Jean Chrétien was caught on a live mic, and what he did is he turned to a colleague and he didn't know that the mic was on, and he said, I talked tough against the American because it's good for the politic, but at the end of the day, we need them. We need the United States. So, we just talk. It's just talk. It's just theater that Mark Carney is engaged in, all this elbows up nonsense and stuff. It's just theater designed to impact Canadians at an emotional level because Mark Carney knows, as do most reasonably intelligent people, that if you can get the voters into an emotional state, if you can get them emotional, then you can control them, you can manipulate them, you can get them all on your side. Because when you're emotional, you don't think. Your critical thinking goes out the window. Well, crime's really bad and the economy sucks and immigration is out of control. But Mark Carney, he's got his elbows up. Oh, I'll forget all that. And they vote with emotion. Sanely, rationally, critically thinking, they say, well, the economy sucks. Housing costs have doubled over the last 10 years. Crime is through the roof. Immigration levels are insane. We haven't got the infrastructure to deal with all these new people the Liberals keep bringing in, and Carney wants to go even further. He wants immigration to explode in the coming years. And they say, well, that makes no sense. Critically, that's the critical. But then if Mark Carney and his Liberal hacks can get people into an emotional state, well, and that's why they're driving fear. They're driving fear. Donald Trump's going to take us over, and oh no, I can't. I stopped thinking about the economy. I stopped all that critical thinking I'd done, and now I'm just afraid of the big bad orange man. And so, and that's the way it works. That's the way the Liberals are operating in this election. And can I say that the Conservatives have never done it? No, I can't. All the political parties know that we're emotional creatures. I think Pierre Poilievre is a little different. Genuinely, I think Pierre Poilievre is incredibly focused. I don't find him very emotional at all. It hurts him because Canadians want warm and fuzzy. They like good words. They like nice words. That's how come we got stuck with Trudeau for 10 years, because he talked a really good game. He never walked the talk. He would say the words, but then his actions always contradicted the words. But Canadians like nice sounding words. And so, he's a horrible person, but he says nice things. Mark Carney is on, we've got pictures. He's even addressed them. They're 100% legitimate. Even Mark Carney himself doesn't say that these are fake photos or anything like that. There are pictures of Mark Carney rubbing elbows with the Ghislaine Maxwells of the world. That is the world of Mark Carney. He travels in rarefied circles with criminal types like Ghislaine Maxwell. And he claims that he wasn't aware. He's got his excuses about what he's doing, hanging around someone as morally compromised as Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, my wife has known Ghislaine for a long time. They went to school together, so please. Anyway, um, Eat Me's writing, good evening. And then with respect to immigration, Danny is saying, come in through the front door. Welcome. Come in legally. Bye-bye. One-way ticket out of here. Good luck. And a lot of Canadians agree with that. We're a very welcoming country. We need immigrants. We have our birth rate, 1.4, our fertility rate, rather, express it in the right manner. Our fertility rate, which needs to be 2.1 to maintain Canada's population roughly where it is. If you want to stay flat, you need every woman, and a real woman, not a Mark Carney liberal version of a woman who can have testicles and a penis, but a real woman has to, or during her childbearing years, needs to have 2.1 children on average. And then Canada would maintain its population. But our fertility rate, the fertility rate in this country is something like 1.3 or 1.4. So if Canada does not allow immigration, instead of our population staying even or growing, it would start falling off a cliff. And we'd have no young people working and paying taxes and driving the economy to pay for the services needed by our seniors. And that's just reality. So we do need immigration. It's a question of how it's managed. You just have the door wide open and someone can come in and walk across some place like the Roxham Road, declare themselves a refugee seeking asylum, and then it takes 4 years before it gets adjudicated. And then they're okay, well, you've been here 4 years, we got no choice, you can stay. Even though your asylum claim was bogus, you're from Mexico and you were under no risk. You came here economically, you jumped the line, you jumped in front of people playing by the rules, but we're going to let you stay and we're going to reward you for breaking the rules, is what happens in Canada. Brett's wishing Eat Me and I'm sure everyone a happy Easter. And I've got Dio Blomix is saying that the Conservative Party of Canada is over 40% in multiple polls today. I shared yesterday the poll by Main Street Research that has, I think it's 41, 42 for the Conservatives, 38 or so for the Liberals, about a 4-point lead for the Conservatives. The only thing is, what has happened in this election is that the support for the Greens and the NDP has fallen off a cliff. And voting intention is galvanizing around the Conservatives and the Liberals. It's become a two-horse race. In previous elections, the NDP could be counted on to garner somewhere around 16 to 18, maybe 19% of the vote. Now they're punching somewhere in and around 10. Some of the polls have them, Main Street has them down as low as 6%. And where has that vote gone? Most of it has gone to the Liberal Party of Canada. And that's bolstered their numbers. And so that's what's going to make it interesting in a first past the post voting system. If you have NDP joining Liberal support, it makes it more difficult for the Conservatives to win. We will see what happens. So that may have influenced my impression of the leader debate, because I actually did want Jagmeet Singh to do reasonably well. Because I realized that any support that Jagmeet Singh is going to get is, by and large, is going to come from people who it's either going to be NDP or Liberal. It's a binary choice. They're either going to vote NDP or Liberal. And there are a lot of people. Jagmeet Singh has not been a good politician. He's a poor communicator. He's very whiny. He strikes me as someone, he sounds like someone running for high school president of the student council. But I want Jagmeet Singh to do well, because if the NDP could get back above 15-16%, if they could get at least to that 15-16% area, that would pull support away from the Liberals and allow the Conservatives to win a lot more seats, especially in seat-rich Ontario, 122 seats. So let me keep reading. Eat Me is asking, is the Nepean ballot that long? If it was, the Rhino Party, wouldn't they pull that trick to everyone else? They only did it to Polyev, not Nepean. Nepean is the riding that Mark Carney chose. What he did was he kicked out the Liberal Party member of Parliament from that riding. He was kicked out. Mark Carney says, "Well, I didn't pick it. They are nominating. We have a committee, and they determined that this guy who's been a parliamentarian for the last two elections, going back 2019 to 2019, he's won in 2019, 2021. Well, our little committee said, well, you're not allowed to run. You're not a suitable candidate for the Liberal Party. So I get to run in a safe Liberal riding." That's what happened. Mark Carney didn't want to go to a riding that, you know, he wanted a sure thing, is what he wanted. I expect that Mark Carney will win his seat as well. I expect Polyev will win his handily, and I expect Mark Carney will win Nepean handily. I would be thrilled if Nepean voters voted against Mark Carney. Vote ABC, anybody but Carney, and ideally for the Conservative candidate, but we'll see. Uh, yeah, so it has tightened up. The Liberal support went up, and then people got to know Mark Carney, and then they saw the debates, and now his support is falling, and the Conservative support is rising. And we only have a week left, and there's probably 5 million people have already voted. That's a good thing for the Conservatives. Putting on my political scientist hat from my days in university when I studied poli-sci. Typically speaking, when you see a surge in voting in advanced polling, it indicates a desire for change. When you're content, when you want to maintain the status quo, you're not as inclined to get out and vote early. When you want to change things, yeah, I'm getting out early. So I think it bodes well that there's been a record number of ballots cast during advanced polling. That's good for us. That's good for the Conservatives. I haven't got any Liberal trolls on yet. We'll see if any have shown up. New Brunswick Lala is writing, they had to get 150 nominations in order to put their name on the ballot. Yeah, you have to get a nomination sheet with so many people. According to New Brunswick law, it's 150 signatures, and then you give that to Elections Canada, and then you're registered as a candidate in whatever riding it is. I didn't know it was 150. That's what New Brunswick law says, and sounds about right to me. If one of them gets less than 150 votes, that's a good idea. What New Brunswick Lala is saying is that if after the election is held, and that individual who had 150 names on their nomination papers doesn't get 150 votes, New Brunswick Lala is suggesting that they be fined $10,000 for electoral interference. Good idea, but unfortunately, that's a great idea, but it's not on the books right now. So there is no penalty, and you can't retroactively, you should not in a free and democratic society. You should not make a law retroactive. The law, when you committed the act, if it's legal, well, it's legal. You can't make it illegal after, and then retroactively find someone guilty. But and then New Brunswick Lala has checked as well. 91 candidates on the ballot in Pierre Poilievre's riding of Carleton. Viral Stigma's riding only it's only PP's riding, only Pierre Poilievre's riding, which they did that, which makes it seem more like a Liberal stunt. Because why would they not do the same thing right next door in Carleton or in Nepean, where where Mark Carney is running. Good point. Um, Polyev is very much being targeted. Um, I'm just trying to catch back up. Okay, Danny's writing. He also said budgets balance themselves. That was Trudeau. Yeah, this is the last election with first past the post voting. Budgets balance themselves. And he also at one point said, I don't think much about economic and, fiscal affairs. I don't worry about that. That's what Trudeau said. And fair enough, Trudeau, because Trudeau's like, I've got Mark Carney. He's my top economic advisor. He's the one giving me the advice on economic matters. Well, what about the economic impacts of letting 750,000 newcomers into Canada? What's the economic impact? Mark Carney, don't worry about it. Inflation is good. Everything's fine. Inflation is good if you're rich because your assets go up in value. Where inflation hammers, it hammers the poor. But the liberals, the Mark Carney types of this world, don't give a shit about, and sorry for swearing, the Mark Carney types of this world don't give a rat's rosy rear end about the poor, the marginalized. They just talk like they do. Their actions prove that they don't give a rat's rosy rear end about poor, hardworking, the marginalized, those who are struggling. They don't care about them. Mark Carney doesn't. He cares about his shareholders at Brookfield, registering investment funds down in Bermuda because you don't want tax dollars going in and paying for things like infrastructure and programs that struggling Canadians need, healthcare. No, we don't need that. Register down in Bermuda. Well, we don't have any, it's expensive to buy property. Yeah, well, we'll use a bike shop. We'll use an address of a bike shop. That's what they did. You can check it out. Even CTV, CBC, Global News, our lying mainstream media, even some truth leaks out. And even they couldn't ignore that little juicy tidbit. Uh, what is stigmas writing? Nepean, yeah. Carlton and Nepean are glued together. I think they're both in the city of Ottawa, the same way that Etobicoke is part of Toronto, or Scarborough is part of Toronto, or North York, East York. They had amalgamation in Ottawa as well. And then Eat Me is saying not only do you need those 150 nominations, but you also need the signatures and the entry fee to be on the ballot. Um, and viral stigmas of the opinion that the entry fee was either removed or dramatically reduced just recently, which nuts. Viral is writing, one of the clowns taking part in the scheme said something along these lines on the media uh, about the entry fee was either removed or drastically reduced. New Brunswick Lala is writing, the guy doing the interview said they couldn't do it in Carney's riding due to weather or something. That makes no sense. They did it in the Trinity Bellwood riding. They did it in, I'm not sure if they did it in the Montreal riding, LaSalle, Aymar, Verdun, big long riding name. I don't know if they did it there, but I know they did it in Trinity Bellwood, and it meant that the results of the election, that by-election, just one seat, a vacated seat that didn't have a sitting member, and it made that voting process. It took forever to count the ballots. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning before they were able to finally definitively say, okay, the Conservatives won another seat from the Liberals. Boom, 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 boom. Virals running the weather when it's the same weather, of course. And Danny is writing. I spoke earlier about Easter and, Jesus, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Danny writes, Jesus is forever. I had a remark. I did a video probably more than a year ago talking about the connections between the Latter day Saint religion, Mormonism, and Freemasonry, and talking about the chosen. And at the time, having some misgivings over it. I need to do another video on that because obviously I've revisited my opinions and I'm now a big fan of the chosen. So I need to do a new video on that topic. talking about why I'm kind of, I'm actually recommending The Chosen. I actually got everyone at Easter that get together we had on Easter Sunday. We put on the TV and we all watched season one, I think episodes 3 and 4 together because I really like episode 4. I really like it, really sets the tone. And the end of that episode is where the way they have it depicted is that Simon is in deep trouble. He owes a lot of money to Rome in back taxes, and he's out fishing all night, trying to catch enough fish to pay off his debt and unsuccessful. And then they come across Jesus doing preaching at the side of the sea. And Jesus says, cast your net out. And Simon Peter says, oh, we've been at this all night. And Jesus gives him a look and he goes, all right, at your word. And he throws his net in the water and nothing happens for the first, 3, 4 seconds. And Simon Peter looks over at Jesus like, see, told you. And then boom, the boat starts tipping over because there are so many fish in the net. It's a powerful scene. I enjoy it. But I do have some caution with anything, and I've had some thoughts on it. I'll do a video on that soon. Anyway, viral stigma is writing. All this Jesus talk has me thinking of Bruce Almighty. I haven't seen that movie. I don't like Jim Carrey, never have. Spitting his coffee into for some reason. I've never seen Bruce Almighty again, and it's not because of the content. It's just I don't like Jim Carrey. I find he chews the scenery. I think he overacts. Uh, I never even liked him as a comedian. Just personal opinion. I know some people really like Jim Carrey. Fair enough. Danny's writing, liberals love them, care for them, cherish them, just don't try to understand them. I like that comment of the day. New Brunswick La La thinks something is funny. Probably that scene from Bruce Almighty. And New Brunswick La La is also saying the orange scourge. No kidding. Um, Eat Me is writing that Moose on the Loose predicts that Vancouver will have one huge blue wave and that Elizabeth May will probably lose her riding. What does that mean for the Greens? Oh, it sets the Greens back huge. The Greens have been around for like 40 years. It took them 20 plus years to elect their first member. And then you have the PPC, which didn't start running candidates in federal elections until 2019. So they've been the People's Party of Canada has only been around for 6 years, 2019 till now. Maybe the party started in 2018, 5, 6 years. And whereas the Green Party has been around for 40 plus years, and the People's Party of Canada, it has the same or more support than the Green Party. In just 6 years, their political movement, if you want to call it that, is more substantive than the Greens after 40 plus years. I think the Green Party, could be extinction. Kind of ironic. The Green Party is now an endangered species in Canada. I kind of like that. I find the whole premise, and I've said it many times, about climate change, even if carbon is the big bad boogeyman that everyone says, well, Canada can't do anything about it, even if it is. I don't believe it is, but hey, I'll put some water in my wine and say, okay, maybe it is. Maybe carbon is the big bad boogeyman. And if it is, Canada can't do anything to stem the emissions of greenhouse gases that are coming from China, from India, from Pakistan, from underdeveloped and developing nations that are trying to. They need cheap energy. Cheap energy drives an economy, and we're driving our economy into the ground while the Chinese, the Indians, the Pakistanis, while their economies are growing because they're using cheap energy, and we're oh no, we got to be green. It's crazy. Um, Danny's writing that the best scene is with the gangsters and monkey. Again, you guys are talking about something I haven't seen. Uh, And Viral is writing, all I'm saying is 14-year-olds were about to vote for the Liberal Party race. When you put two and two together regarding Maxwell, it makes you wonder. For what it's worth, and just to be fair and to be somewhat nonpartisan, um, conservatives allow 14-year-olds to vote in their leadership races as well. So when Aaron O'Toole, when Andrew Scheer, when Pierre Poilievre became leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, they also allow 14-year-olds to vote. The only thing is, because the Conservatives were not the ruling party in Parliament, you weren't also electing the Prime Minister of Canada. Whereas what I find more troubling is the fact that the Liberal Party of Canada said that they had 400,000 members, 400,000, but only 151,000 votes were cast in the leadership race. And there were mainstream news articles from Liberals complaining that they were denied the right to vote. And I have a suspicion, I have a conspiratorial mindset. There's no Elections Canada does not govern the Liberal Party of Canada's leadership race. There's no outside scrutiny. And did the Liberal Party prevent people from voting in order to manufacture an overwhelming 86% victory for Mark Carney? Open question. 250,000 or so Liberal Party members either did not vote or were barred, excluded from voting in the leadership race. Was that done intentionally? I have my suspicions that it was. I think there are individuals who are aligned with other candidates who found themselves unable to get the proper registration to enable them to vote for a Chrystia Freeland or one of the two other candidates. They wanted to create this impression, this is my opinion, of overwhelming unity and support. We saw Chrystia Freeland when they announced Mark Carney, you know, going full twitchy, hey, for Mark Carney. I thought you were running against him. It sounds like you wanted him to win, and that this was all just a dog and pony show. This was just theater. That's my opinion, genuine opinion. Uh, Danny believes that if the Greens don't get a seat, that their party will dissolve. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think that'll happen. I think the party will persist, but it'll be good to see them off the political landscape. They won't be in the news anymore, or hardly at all. But I don't expect them to be completely dissolved. The Green movement has some very die-hard, cultish like members, the Greta Thunberg types who are all in, and they're not going to go away. That's my opinion. And Eat Me would not miss Elizabeth May. Um, Viral is writing, I would like to point out we only need immigration because our birth rate sucks. The point I made, birth rate, fertility rate. Yeah. This is a result of things like the economy, or even more impactful, the pill. Yeah, the birth control pill changed the world. Next to the wheel, in my opinion, the birth control has had the biggest sociological impact in world history, especially in the Western world where access to birth control is so pervasive. And the thing is, what's interesting is the higher, there's a tendency to say the reason that the birth rate in Canada is so low is because, well, people can't afford to have kids. But the richer countries become, the lower their birth rate goes. When the more affluent a society, you take an affluent society against a poor society, the poor society will always have a higher birth rate. So it kind of, there's a disconnect there. It's a bit of a paradox. The more people can afford to have children, the less children they have. And I've spoken about this on my channel before. I mean, this is some of the stuff I did study at university. When someone, and I think it has merit. This argument that I'm going to put forth has merit. You can take it as you want, think it over. You don't have to agree with me. But when someone has a house and they have a car and they go on nice vacations, that becomes an expression of their identity. Look at me, I'm Gordon Causey. This is my house. This is my car. I just went to, Dominican or Cuba or Jamaica, and these are my things. And that's an expression of an individual's identity. When you get someone who's poor and they don't have their house is a hovel and they don't have a car and they don't go on vacations or anything, how do they express their identity to the world? They say, I'm Bob and these are my 12 kids. That's an expression of identity. And I think there is merit to that agreement. I don't think it's necessarily universal, but broadly speaking, society wise, I think that there is definitely a lot of merit to that point of view. So, and the statistics bear out that you look at countries, the poorer the country, the higher the birth rate as compared to affluent countries. Affluent countries always have lower birth rates than poor countries. So there's got to be a reason for it. Another reason is Bob, who's very poor and struggling to get by. If he has 12 kids, well, maybe one of them 12, maybe two, I got a better chance that one of them will succeed and be able to look after me in my old age. That's another reason put forward. Um, New Brunswick agrees with Viral 100%. Eat Me is writing Chandra Ira. That was the individual in Nepean, the writing that Mark Carney basically stole. Um, was well loved in Nepean. Have a gut feeling Carney won't do that well. We shall see. We shall see. Typically, what will happen is in a situation where a party leader wants to come and steal someone else's seat, usually the person who has the seat stolen from them is given some juicy patronage job. Here, we'll make you, you know, we'll give you a committee, we'll give you a nice bureaucratic job so you can make lots of money because the leader wants to steal your seat. It's happened before. Uh, And Danny's saying, judge a tree by its fruits, not its roots. New Brunswick is saying, the kid I saw said it wasn't a big deal. They had to stay till 2 or 3. Okay. I'm not keeping up perfectly well with the messages. Uh, and Viral loves mangoes, which we wish we could have mangoes in Canada. No, they either come usually from the Caribbean, I believe, or India. I like mangoes. My little guy, every time I go shopping, if they're on special, I buy a case because they're expensive mangoes, but they got to be shipped in. We can't grow them here. Uh, wow, a lot of messages. Um, Eat Me is writing, talking about the mainstream. CBC had a uh, something about the independent media having a shot at asking questions. Now they want the process scrapped since the little babies didn't get their way. If the CBC, CTVs, and globals of the world would engage in genuine ethical journalism, we wouldn't have this argument. It's because the CBCs and their ilk are so horribly ethically corrupted. That's why we have alternative media, and they should look at themselves in the mirror. And to me, this is all a big distraction. Uh, And now you've hit my one. I love pineapple. I love pineapple, and I found it funny when I've gone down to Cuba. I've been down to Cuba a number of times. The pineapple you get at the resorts that I've had, I find it always very dry and not as good as what I get here in Canada. However, when I've gone off, left the resort and traveled around, gone to towns and visited people's farms, Cuban people are so welcoming, and they do it on purpose because they need money. So they open their farms to tourists to come in and tour around. And when you have the pineapple from the farms, oh, it's lovely. Um, Danny is caught up on The Chosen, waiting for season 5 with bated breath. Have you? Yeah, me too. We've watched all 4 seasons. I sometimes I get the numbers confused in my head. Yeah, we watched season 4, waiting for season 5, which they put out as 3 movies at the theaters. It was one of the top-rated movies. It's only out a very short time, but they did very well. And We didn't go to see it at the theater, and it's my understanding that they won't be streaming them until June, which stinks. I wish they were streaming now. Uh, and Eat Me saying that, see, told you Jesus was very present in season one. He was, but in the episode one, season one of The Chosen, Jesus does not show up until the very end. Someone may be watching season one, episode one, and watching, the first 30, 40 minutes and going, I thought this was about Jesus, and there's nothing about Jesus until the very end. The season one, episode one is primarily about Mary Magdalene. Viral is writing that the only Jim Carrey movies that he enjoys are Bruce Almighty and The Grinch That Stole Christmas. It's one of those cases where Bruce Almighty may be good. I just don't like Jim Carrey. I saw him in The Truman Show. I've seen Liar Liar, and I just don't like him. So when a movie comes out, I never saw Dumb and Dumber because by that time my opinion was fixed. I don't like Jim Carrey. I also don't like Nick Cage. And I've seen a few Nick Cage movies. One I liked. There was one Nicolas Cage movie I liked, but only one. It was one where a Christmas movie where I forget exactly how it played out, but he went into an alternative timeline and found out what his life would have been like if he had married a certain woman. And then the timeline ends and he misses it. And he wants to bring it back. And Viral saying he definitely overacts, but it works for those two films. And that may be true. Maybe I should give Bruce Almighty a look. And Viral saying that heard that a lot of people saying that they voted for someone other than Carney in their race and their vote wasn't allowed. That would be in the Liberal leadership race. Yeah, that's what I have heard as well, is that those who were not supporting Carney for the Liberal Party leadership had trouble or were barred from getting being registered to vote. 400,000 card-carrying Liberal Party members, but only 151,000 cast ballots that made him leader of the party and the Prime Minister of Canada. And he just issued, getting back to Pope Francis passing away, and it's part of the role of the Prime Minister from the office of the Prime Minister of Canada, and then a statement, talking up Pope Francis. Well, I didn't read it, but from the office of the Prime Minister of Canada, and then at the bottom, Mark Carney, Right Honorable Prime Minister of Canada. It should add pro tem, which is Latin and means for the time being. When you hear about someone being as a placeholder, someone dies and they need, a company needs to appoint a president, they appoint a president pro tem. This is a pro tem prime minister that we have. Canadians will decide who the prime minister is on April 28th, and please let it be Polyev. Eat Me is asking everyone to give me a thumbs up. I see I've got now 9. Need one more. One more. If you haven't hit the thumb, one more. Give me 10. Double digits is always good. New Brunswick agrees 100% with something I said. And Danny thinks that the mangoes from India are the best. Yes, I enjoy mangoes, but pineapple is far better. I like pineapple more. New Brunswick Lala is writing something different. The increase in reproductive birth defects is statistically proven. Maybe food, we don't know why. We don't know why. We know that autism is through the roof. I think it's like 1 in 35 kids now is born with autism. I didn't know anyone who had autism when I was growing up. Nobody. Well, maybe I did. Maybe I did. But, one of the things they're saying is that it's due to reporting, diagnosis. We're diagnosing it now. Well, I didn't know kids before who were, nonverbal when I was growing up, but here's a big word. I love big words. Ubiquitous. The word ubiquitous is everywhere. A little bad humor. Ubiquitous means I see it everywhere. So the word ubiquitous is everywhere. And what is the cause? We have some who think it's from rolling up the sleeve. There are others who think it's maybe plastics. Others thinks it's could be things like pesticides and other chemicals in our food, or growth hormone in the food, or antibiotics or whatever. The only way you find out is through testing, through scientific research, through rigorous study. The biggest thing I find is a lot of times the studies simply are not done. I've talked before on this channel over a drug or a pesticide herbicide called atrazine. Atrazine is banned in Europe, but in Canada and the United States and China, it's widely used, atrazine. And studies have shown that frogs exposed to atrazine, that a certain percentage of male frogs exposed to atrazine will flip gender, being male, and become female, producing viable eggs. Now, have any studies been done on mammalian species? Have any studies been done on human beings? As far as I'm aware, no, none. So we don't know what exposure to atrazine does to beings. But if atrazine has the potential to take a male frog and turn it into a female frog producing viable eggs, if it can do that to an amphibian, well, I think it's reasonable to assume that there at least could be some impact on mammals and, by extension, humans. But if there aren't any studies done, then an apologist can reasonably say that there are no, the atrazine has no proven impact on human beings. And that's true because they've never studied it. So you can't prove that there's an impact until the studies are done. And hopefully, with RFK now in charge of the Health and Human Services, I think is the department, hopefully, with him now in charge, some of these studies will get done and maybe we'll get some answers. We'll find out. And then Viral's writing, if I can go back to it. I believe the better off a society is, the less kids they have because of the pill. Outside of the pill, even if the modern slavery stopping people from having kids, X hours a day working. Definitely access to birth control is huge. Like I say, killer in the Western developed world. Used to be that men and women, anytime you engaged in sexual congress, there was the potential for pregnancy. And the birth control pill largely eliminated that possibility, and it's led to a much more promiscuous society, less traditional society. Anyway, Eat Me is writing China, Japan, North Korea's population are collapsing, all due to different factors, but it is happening. Japan, in particular, their birth rate is, but they have, but their even without mass immigration like we have, their economy is still doing better than I would expect. I would expect with, no young people, very few young people being born, their economy still does very well. They're still in the G7. Anyway, uh, Danny's writing for me. It's the True Man show, an allegory for where we truly live. And I never saw Ace Ventura. I saw some clips. I mean, that you talk about chewing. I think that's where I really got turned off. What little I saw of the Ace Ventura pet detective movies. That anyway, but I think that's true. True man. This is the world we live in. You're being watched. You're being watched 24/7. And we have parents conditioning their kids to be used to this. It's called helicopter parenting. Gosh, in the 70s when I was a kid, even the late 60s, even when I was 3, I'd go outside with my older sister and we'd be out of the house. My mom would be in the kitchen doing whatever, and we were out. There was a girl who lived next door who kind of looked after the kids. But by the time I was in the 70s, by the time I was 6, 7 years of age, my mom was screaming at me, okay, it's a beautiful day outside. Get out of the house. I don't want to see you until lunch. And you would just go out. You'd look for some kids. And we'd go downtown Glen Rock. little town in New Jersey where I was living at the time, and go down, just roam around on our bikes or walking or whatever. And our parents had no idea where we were. And, Gen Xers, we know the old rule, come in when the street lights come on. Not anymore. Now, everyone, you got to know where your kid is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can't have a minute out of sight. And it conditions kids to, expect constant surveillance. And I don't think that's healthy. I've, and the problem is in our virtue signaling world, God help the parent who lets their child go out unsupervised. You're a horrible person. No, you're developing an autonomous young child to become an autonomous, functioning adult. Scary what's happened to this world. Um, what's viral writing? Viral is writing. China recently removed the whole IOU whenever a female chooses to divorce. As you can imagine, they started divorcing en masse before the law took place. You can believe it. Yeah. And he's talking about things like preservations and dyes. Look at the ingredients you need on the food that we buy, especially anything that's in the freezer. Or how is it that a loaf of bread can last for 2 weeks? Used to be you bake a fresh loaf of bread, within a day or two, it starts going stale and crusty. Now you get you get a loaf of bread made by a main manufacturer. I'm not going to say any company names now, and it lasts 2 weeks. You buy it on the first, and it's got the best before date is the 15th. How does bread last that long? And you read through the ingredients on food now, and you need a degree in chemistry to understand, you know, acetate this and biosodium carbonate that, and I don't know exactly what's in. I could pull one out. Look, I got a bag of potato chips here, no name. What's in my potato chips? Potatoes, canola oil, and here, mid ol oleic sunflower and or corn oil. But what's oleic? OLEIC? I don't know. And that's just potato chips. You look at some of the stuff we buy, and it's tough. Anyway, especially when you're on a budget. Uh, And Danny, with respect to Nicolas Cage, says the only Nicolas Cage movie I like is Gone in 60 Seconds. Eleanor Nuff said 1967 Mustang G. I haven't seen that one. I did see Snake Eyes, and that wasn't bad. I liked the movie. I hated Nicolas. I disliked Nicolas Cage's performance, but I found at least in some segments he dialed it down a bit. Uh, Danny says he has a cousin who was selective mute as a child. Uh, anyway, it looks like we're getting to the end of the messages, and I've been going on for an hour and a half, so I'm going to wrap up. Danny, knowing the movie was decent. And New Brunswick Lola is writing, parents have been spoon-fed fear for too long. Yeah, big time. And they are afraid to take their eyes off their children. In my era, when I was growing up in the 70s, did a child sometimes get abducted and go missing? Yes, it did happen. There were cases. Christine Jessup is one that comes to mind in Toronto. But more than that, there's another name that I know, and I actually know the girl's family. A young teenager, I think she was 13, 14, abducted and murdered. And a little bit of a divulsion. I was a witness during the guy's murder trial, a guy named John Allen Starks. I was actually a material witness for the prosecution for the Crown during his murder trial. And that was tough because the murder victim, I worked with her sister. And there's a woman I know, I work with her. Years had gone by. It took 10 plus years before this guy was apprehended, tried, and ultimately convicted. John Allen Starks, and he died in prison. And I was one of the witnesses. This is my, outside of traffic court, that's the only time I've been involved with the legal system. And Danny, I like his little line, another good quip. If you can't pronounce it, do not eat it. You know what? A lot of us would starve if we played by that rule. But that's a good line. If you can't, I have a rule in the house with my youngest guy. He's 11, and the rule is, if God made it, you don't have to ask. So it was made by human hands. If human beings were involved in the production, then you have to ask. You want a cookie? You want potato chips? You want, a brownie, this, that, or the other? That you have to ask for. But apples, oranges, bananas, anything God made, anything that came out of God's green earth, go ahead, fill your boots. Carrots, have celery, have cucumber, have avocado. He loves all this stuff. He loves avocados. It's amazing. What 11-year-old likes avocado? But he's on, can you get some avocado and mango? Avocado and mango. And I'm like, the mangoes are expensive. Avocados aren't too bad. Anyway, uh, and then I've got Danny saying, in the movie Snake Eyes, shot in Montreal. Oh, I didn't know that. It was set in, I think, Newark or Atlantic City. I think Atlantic City, New Jersey. But there's a scene from the Montreal Forum. That must be the boxing match. The movie was about an assassination, and I forget exactly who was being assassinated. Some political figure was going to be assassinated during a boxing match, and everyone was in on it, including the fighters, and it was all staged. And I'm sure the forum was used during that boxing match, if that's and New Brunswick La La is Camera Keepness. Not sure what that's in relation to. And Michael Dunahee. I know the name Michael Dunahee. I know that name. Is he the actor from Snake Eyes who played like the senior naval commander, and was a senior official in the U.S. administration, like worked in the Defense Department or something like that? It's been so long. And Danny likes guacamole. At least I can pronounce that one. Although I'm sure if I'd never seen the word before, I love pronouncing jalapeno. I like saying jalapeno just for fun. It annoys people. New Brunswick la la. Is that the right spelling, Michael? I was bilingual as a child, so I sometimes have troubles. Same as color, blue. If I think about it too long, I get even more confused. I'm bilingual as well. Plus ou moins. I can get by in French without any difficulty. I love going to Quebec. And I love going to New Brunswick. I love going to Shippagan, Tracadie, Lamec, Caraquette. Yeah, incroyable. Les Acadiens, les Acadiennes. And then Eat Me's writing nice to Danny. Might watch it later. Right now, I'm done breaking the OKC bombing. Yes, Eat Me's been watching about Timothy McVeigh and the whole story about the OKC bombing. Right, found an amazing feed, clear and constant. Who knows how an entire day of broadcast was shared, but it was revealing. Share that up with me. I wouldn't mind. Put it in the comment field. I wouldn't mind watching that because I know there are lots of questions that are left unanswered about that day when the federal building in Oklahoma City was bombed up, and the official narrative is that it was done by something of a domestic terrorist by the name of Timothy McVeigh, and I think he had some partners, and he's a former U.S. Army veteran, if memory serves. That was a long time ago. That was before 911, if I remember correctly. Um, and New Brunswick Lola learned to read in French first, English-speaking parents. New Brunswick is an interesting place because it is the only province in Canada that is officially bilingual. Canada as a nation, federally, we're a bilingual nation federally, but each province makes its own declaration as to how many official languages it has. And every province in Canada, save New Brunswick, has only one official language. There are 8 provinces: Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, BC. There are 8 provinces. Yeah, 8 provinces have English as their official language. The province of Quebec has French as its one and only official language. New Brunswick, by contrast, is the only province in Canada that has two official languages, English and French. And if you ever get to Shediac or places like that where they speak Chiac, you'll find out that they speak both English and Francais at the même time. It's funny. It's the weirdest accent, and it is franglais. It is total franglais. Jette ton stuff dans mon car. On va driver sur la road. It's almost that bad and that good because, it makes it really easy. And I love going to New Brunswick because no one ever questions my accent there. And anytime you have trouble finding a French word, you just throw the English word in there and everyone understands and they think you're a New Brunswicker. Uh, And Danny's saying that, okay, so the Oklahoma City bombing, the federal building in Oklahoma City, he thinks it was 1995. Amy saying there are many parts to the video, but sure, we'll share the first segment. Great. Yeah. And then if I watch that and enjoy it, I'll watch some more. Um, that's right. Beautiful Shediac. They've got the big, I don't know what you call it. I don't want to say statue. They have a big lobster, probably cast in metal, bronze, tin. I don't know what's made of. Big, huge lobster. And Danny is fluent in Shiak. That's what they call it. Shiak. Shediak. Shiak is what they speak. Um, and New Brunswick is saying, yeah, English and French in the même phrase. And New Brunswick La is writing, or you say, comment dit-on? Yeah, how do you say, comment dit? Comment ça veut dire? Comment dit-on? How do you say? Yeah, comment in Italian, comment dice? In French, comment ça veut dire? Comment dit-on? How do we say? And Danny lived in Caracat for a spell, been there many times. There's Caracat and Bas Caracat, lower Caracat. And had a friend down in Bas Caracat. Beautiful area and lots of blueberries. Tons of blueberries. They grow right on in Bas Caracat, which is on Chaleur Bay de Chaleur, which is the Atlantic Ocean, North Atlantic. It's rocky, and blueberries grow among the rocks, and they're wild blueberries. And Bob's your uncle go out. You never buy blueberries at the store because they're right there. You can just go and pick them. Uh, and the name of the lobster in Shediac is Lenny the Lobster. And low bush, yeah, I think that's what you're talking about with the low bushes of blueberries in Caracat. Although anywhere else too. Anyway, I've gone on for an hour and 38 minutes, so let me wrap it up. I got to work tomorrow, and it's already 11:07 p.m. in my time zone. I'm going to do a video maybe tomorrow, the next night. My next video. Take a little break from politics, although goodness knows, no promises, because if something blows up, if there's a major announcement, if we found that, Mark Carney got caught in bed with a teenager, like a Senator Geary type thing from the old Godfather movies, but something like that happens, well, then no promises. But if everything stays status quo, I'll do a video tomorrow. I'm going to talk about The Chosen again. I rewatched a video I did talking about the connections between the Latter-day Saint Church, Angel Studios, The Chosen, that movie Sound of Freedom, Jim Caviezel, and very cautionary. And at the time, and now I've obviously my opinions have evolved, for lack of a better term, and but I was reminded of something, and so I've had some thoughts on it. Going to talk about the serpent in the desert that Moses held up, the bronze uh, crafted serpent that he put up onto a pole in the desert, and some stuff that maybe there are a lot of people I don't think know, even professing Christians, unless you've read the Bible like fully, cover to cover. There's a lot in there that doesn't get preached about when you go to church service on Sundays and doesn't get sermonized on. And that bronze serpent is one of them. And it's referenced at least 3 times in the Bible, the bronze serpent, at least 3 times. Many will know that it's mentioned twice. The first time being in Exodus when they, or Numbers, I think it's either Exodus or Numbers, the Israelites are wandering in the desert, and they start whining, bitching, moaning, complaining, and cursing out God. And so God sends snakes, and the snakes are biting people and killing them. And the Israelites realize that they screwed up, and they go to Moses and go, look, we know we messed up. We were cursing out at God, getting mad. And so he sent these snakes. Can you go talk to God? Get him to get rid of the snakes. Moses, okay. And he goes to God, and God doesn't get rid of the snakes. God says instead, fashion a serpent out of bronze, hold it up on a pole, and have the people look at it. I want to talk about that. And then Jesus refers to it in when he meets with Nicodemus. And he says, just as the bronze serpent was held up, so too the Son of Man must be held up. Jesus equates himself. Some might be going, what? If you're not that familiar with the Bible, some might be going, Jesus compared himself to a serpent on a pole? What? And I can make the connection. I'm also going to tie in The Chosen and Angel Studios and Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and revisit that little topic. I want to do a video on that. Anyway, what's the last thing? And Danny is saying that chaleur baie de chaleur, is an oxymoron. Chaleur literally means warmth. Chaleurant, warm. Baie de chaleur, warm bay. But it's warm in the sense that it was welcoming. You know, you go into a room and the room was very, a very warm room can mean a very welcoming room. So, but chaleur does mean heat, warmth. So, anyway, thank you everyone for watching, and unbelievable those who made it all the way to the end. And New Brunswick Lolo is saying warm, LOL. Yeah, no kidding. I swam at Miscou Island. You're swimming in the Baie de Chaleur, the North Atlantic Ocean, and I was swimming in the heat of the summer. It was probably 35 degrees, 30, 35, up in the 80s and 90s. And I'll tell you something, man, your manhood shrinks down to nothing. Your boys want to crawl right back up inside to where they were before, before puberty when they dropped. They went back in because it is freezing, and it doesn't matter what time of year. Anyway, Cryptomeria showed up. Happy Monday. She's got the a bunny and the smiley face. Yeah. Oh, cutting glass with, oh yeah. It was insanely cold. But anyway, I'm going to end the video the way I always do. You guys know the drill. But I like the words. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. And may the Lord God, creator of all things, may he grant you peace. Because ultimately, most of this video has been about the election. And, you can trust the results and all that. But at the end of the day, whatever happens, come what may, Carney, Polyev, whoever it is, what's far more important is to be in relationship with the Lord God, creator of all things. And the way we do that is through his son who died on a cross, a horrible, excruciating, painful, unimaginable death to reconcile humanity to the perfect Lord God, creator of all things. So God bless, and probably be doing another video tomorrow night. We'll talk to y'all then.